Artisan Crackers, today at Cooking at Home with Cody. Artisan Crackers calls for 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. But it also calls for something that I want to talk to you a little bit about. It calls for 3 tablespoons of vegetable shortening, which could be Crisco, or it also, instead of Crisco, could be pork fat. So in today's Artisan Crackers, I'm going to be using pork fat or lard. So step 1, we'll combine these together. I like to use a wire whisk just to get everything mixed together. And the next step, which is step number 2, we'll be using 3 tablespoons of shortening, lard, or butter. Today, we're going to be using lard. All right, I think that's mixed up. So on to step 2. All right, I have 3 tablespoons of lard, and we're going to work this into the all-purpose flour. We're going to do this by hand. And the purpose for this is to get it worked into the flour. All right, so as I've worked this through, you can see I don't feel any more lard pieces. Now we'll go to the next step. If you're following along with our recipe from cookwithcody.com, you'll see that we've just completed step 2. And we're on step 3. Now step 3, we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of cold milk. And we're going to mix that in with a fork. And we're going to get this into a ball. Now it's important that this milk is cold milk. We want to make sure that you're using cold milk. I have 3/4 of a cup of milk. I'm going to put that in and we're going to mix that up with a fork. This is working together as a ball. You can see it's forming a ball now. Now I'm going to complete this work and then we're going to move to the next step where we put this on a smooth surface and we roll it out. And now we are ready to roll out the dough. Now to begin with, to do this, I'm going to throw a little bit of all-purpose flour down on the mat. This is a silicone mat, and then I'm going to put the ball on and I'm going to start rolling it. We want this rolled out to be about 1/8 of an inch, so it's going to take a lot of rolling. It's getting better. It's getting very thin at the ends. So it's not perfect. I mean, you don't see a perfectly round bit of dough, but it's good enough. All right, so what I like to use is just kosher salt, nothing special, and just everyday cracked pepper from your pepper mill. You could use something like Grill Mates. This is Montreal steak seasoning. This works wonderfully. Or you could just go with plain old garlic salt. You have choices about how you might want to cut them. You might want to cut them with a really simple cookie cutter. This is just a stainless steel cookie cutter. or you might want to slice them in long strips. We're going to do both so that you can see how you can do them. Okay, to get started, we're going to take our kosher salt and we're going to go ahead and put the kosher salt on. So I'm going to put kosher salt over here. You can see that I'm just kind of sprinkling this on. If you think about crackers usually have those big pieces of salt on them. I'm doing about a third of it. I'm going to use this for the middle section. Change it up a little bit, right? On this third, I'm going to spread just a little bit of Lowry's garlic salt. I'm going to put the fresh cracked pepper where I had put the salt. And since this already has pepper, I'm not going to do anything, and this I'm going to leave alone. We are ready to use the docker. Now I'm going to use the dough docker on a portion of it to show you how it works, and this is really cool. So here's the dough docker, and watch as I do this. See what it does? It puts holes. Now those holes will allow the heat to work through, and that'll be a crispy cracker when it's done. Now, if I didn't want to use that, I could use the good old-fashioned fork, and there's nothing wrong with using a fork to do this. It just takes a lot longer than the dough docker does. So I'm showing you how to use this with the fork, but I'm going to use the dough docker for the rest of it because, as you could see, it went really quickly. And don't be afraid, you can go over it a couple of times, it isn't going to hurt anything. In fact, it's probably going to be better. What you don't want is big long lines in it, but what you do want is you want to make sure that there are holes poked in that dough, because remember, the heat has to be able to get in through the dough. That's what makes it a crispy cracker. But you do too much of it, you might not be able to get it off of the surface. So we're going to go through this one more time, and I think we're in good shape. Now for cutters. We talked about using a round cutter. Now I'm going to cut a few with the round cutter, but mostly I'm going to just cut these in long strips because it'll go faster. But having the cutter is kind of good because you can get nice crackers just by running your cutter like that. And I'm doing it up at the upper edge. I know it's at the edge of the screen, but that's just to be able to show you what it's going to look like. And this is going to produce some really nice crackers. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create, and this is just a bread knife, not something very sharp because I don't want to mess with my silicone mat. But I'm going to run this through really quickly, and they do make nice slicers that you can use for this. Oh, I could actually get a few extra rounds out of this, couldn't I? Like there, and there, and there, maybe even there. So we'll get a few extras that we're going to be putting onto the pan pretty soon. And I'm going to cut these a couple of inches wide. And this is going to take us to the very end, where we'll have some really interesting artisan crackers because they won't be perfect. And now I'm just going across so that I get my basic rectangular cracker, don't worry, does not have to be perfect. In fact, if it's perfect, somebody's going to think you got it out of a box. So be happy with its imperfection, and nobody needs to know. Now I'm going to start peeling these up, and I'm going to put them onto an ungreased baking sheet. And I'll show you that in just a minute. Again, don't worry about any of the imperfections. This is not supposed to be something that looks like it came out of a box. Here's what I'm doing. I have an ungreased stainless steel pan, and I'm going to fill this pan up and come back and show you what that looks like. I've set the middle rack in place because I want to be able to see these and to make sure that they don't burn. Now we're going to bake these for about 8 minutes, and then we're going to take them out and we're going to turn them over and bake them for another couple of minutes. Carefully turn these over, and there's one that is pretty much done. As you can see, some of them still need to be done on the back side. Notice they're not sticking to the pan. In fact, they're kind of rolling around, moving around the pan pretty nicely. But they're not quite done. I'm going to get them done on the other side. Much, much better. They are now looking more like crackers. These are my cooling racks, and they really work well. There are the crackers. So you can see I've put them on the cooling rack. And it's okay if some of them are a little more done than the others. That's not a problem. That's part of Artisan Crackers, right? But I've turned them the right side up, the proper side up, so they are cooling and they're ready to eat probably in about 5 minutes. Now we're on to the next batch, and we're going to continue that until we're done. And that's Artisan Crackers. I hope you enjoyed this video. You can download this recipe and others from cookwithcody.com. And remember, make something special tonight.